Hi, this is Steve from DrumDial, and in this video series I am rebuilding a set of 25 and 28-inch Premier Timpani. It took me about a week to refurbish and restore this classic set of 35-year-old timpani to new condition. So let's get started with our initial inspection to see what needs to be done. As you can see, the bowl frame hoop has some minor blemishing here, and the bowl will need some work at this gouge. The struts will need to be stripped and inspected for cracks along with the base assembly. The fine tuning wheel or crown assembly will need to be taken apart also. These casters are in really bad shape. Now, this planet gauge cable is loose, but I can work with this type of tuning gauge. Ouch, lots of damage here, rust, and this pedal assembly has seen better days. This will need a total overhaul. The underside of the grip rod and clutch assembly is sticking. Not all of the original Premier tuning gauges here. Damage on this strut and another deep nick in the bowl. This looks to be in pretty good shape, but is sticking a bit here at the spider arm linkages. I really like this fine tuning wheel. It's what gives these Premiers such a classic look. And when it's working right, it really is a very nice feature. Ouch, these casters have got to go. The rubber is dried and crumbling. Definitely time for an upgrade. The grip rod has some surface corrosion and will need to be polished. The bearings inside may need to be replaced, and the foot pedal needs some work also. More polishing needed here as well. This looked like a crack in the base, but luckily it's only dirt and grime. More polishing. A little more cleaning. But that's to be expected. Not a crack, just dirty. Lots of damage on the bowl ring. This planet gauge actually looks pretty good. More surface damage. We won't know if there's any cracking until we get these struts disassembled and completely stripped. A quick tip here. Before removing any of the bolts, I always mark a lug, the bowl hoop, and strut with a Sharpie ink pen. This way, we always get good alignment. Next, I'll quickly check the bearing edge for any severe nicks or dents. Here's one. And here's another. The rest of the bearing edge feels good. These two spots will need to be fixed. The Teflon tape here is in really bad shape and will need to be replaced. I'm more concerned with damage to the bearing edge. This section is okay. This section here is where I found the bad nick in the bearing edge. You can see that the chip is stuck to the Teflon tape. Let's get a close-up of that. This is caused by an impact, maybe stick damage, and this portion is even worse. Even though these impact damage sites are tough to look at, they need to be dealt with. Luckily, this can be fixed, and I'll do that now. I repaired the edge and bowl damage with an epoxy that's designed for fiberglass. I smoothed the edges and formed the epoxied areas to perfectly match the bearing edge. This is easy when you have the right tools. In this case, a squeegee for the top edge, and another shorter one with a more flexible edge for the side. Then I used sanding sponge blocks, medium and fine grit, followed up with 1000 grit polishing emery paper. The edges came out perfect. I followed up with a light damp cloth to remove any dust or sanding particles. Nice and smooth. I'll use this same process to finish up the second bowl. This is the frame without the bowl and will give you a pretty good idea of the placement of the linkages and how the frame, bowl hoop, and base are assembled. This is the top of the frame hoop and shows the wear caused by the bowl rubbing on it. These are the protective frame felts, and there are more on the inside of the struts near the linkages. The felts help reduce rattles caused by vibration. The felts on the inside edge of the hoop flange will need to be replaced as well. This is a close-up of the linkage that will need to be cleaned and overhauled. We start by disassembling all of the components. I carefully place all of the many pieces together in groups. Sub-assemblies go together and the frames are laid out, ending with the struts. This next set of pictures will give you a pretty good idea of the large parts and various components, like the pedal arm assembly, the grip rod, clutch, and how these parts go together. Check out the detail that Premier went to beautifully mark even the underside of the base assembly. The pedal arm assembly is by far the most complicated, but luckily the nice people at Premier helped me out with the assembly drawings. This made the task much easier, especially for ordering replacement screws and specialty parts. The clutch assembly was in very bad shape and took quite a while to clean and polish. The pedal mechanism was damaged and missing the rubber stops, release roller rod, and the release rod. Some needed some serious repair. I did end up replacing some of the ball bearings in the clutch assembly. It's important to note here that these photos help during the reassembly process for proper placement of the bushings and assembly of the block and bearings. I purchased a few replacement parts from the local Premier dealer, a pull rod, pivot screws, and some cap screws. This is the pedal arm assembly after cleaning, polishing, and reassembly. I only needed the new pivot screws shown here for the clutch. And these schematics help to identify the parts. Now it's very important to properly lubricate the areas on these parts before assembly because it helps to eliminate friction and binding later on. A small amount of lubricant on this washer face in the underside here will make a big difference, and it'll make it easier for fine tuning. This is where the tuning wheel screws to the pull rod, and for demonstration purposes only, I'll leave this piece screwed on. Normally it would be assembled inside the crown before screwing it onto the pull rod like I've done here. All of the crown parts, like this spider arm plate, need to be lubricated before final assembly. The pedal arm has been repaired and adjusted. As you can see here, this is how the clutch is operated. By pushing up and down on the bottom of the bushing, it releases the ball bearings and unlocks the clutch to allow an infinite pedal adjustment on the grip rod. Here, I'll demonstrate how the release works by moving the pedal. It's important to use a dry lubricant on the pivot points on the pedal arm assembly for a quiet, smooth operation. All of the long linkage spider arms that are exposed and not protected by the frame struts needed to be straightened and polished. This is our final clean table with all of our small parts, nuts and bolts, linkages, assemblies and drawings, all ready to go back into the finished frames. Finally, I needed to make replacement rubber shoe cutouts for the base foot. Our next video will cover how I finished the frames and bowls. You won't want to miss that.